Welcome to the Daily Technology Pulse podcast by Daily Computers, your expert technology partners for public and private sector organizations throughout Maryland and Virginia. This episode is brought to you by HPs Workforce Experience Platform. In a world of tight budgets and the need for innovation, HP Workforce Experience allows for you to identify and optimize your organization's technology goals. And now, here's your host, Rick from Daily.
Joining us today on the Technology Pulse, we have Larry Meadows of HP. Larry, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Rick. As you had said, Larry Meadows, I lead out our product strategy and awareness programs inside of the Workforce Experience Platform and digital services at HP. Been here for about 6 years, having a good time looking at how technology leaders are using various software programs to get more out of the technology investments they're making.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. And you know, it's really great. We're really excited to talk about workforce experience. The WXP platform, it is something that's been getting a lot of buzz lately. And we want to make sure that we're breaking it down and let people know just exactly what it is and how they could use it out there when it comes to Daly's customer and prospect universe. So let's jump right into that. And let's just say, give us a little background on WXP.
Absolutely. The Workforce Experience Platform, or what we're calling WXP, is a fleet management and employee engagement tool that's designed to give more insights to technology leaders about the emerging trends and the opportunities to drive improvement inside of the technology investment that they're making. It's a platform that we've pushed out there with Daily as you guys are reaching out to your customers in order to give better insights, not only into how things are performing, but to identify cost optimization strategies and emerging threats and trends before they turn into trouble.
And, that's really something that is going to resonate because particularly when you're talking about cost optimization, because if you think back a couple of years ago, we were just coming out of the pandemic. There was federal money floating around everywhere. Everybody had almost a blank check to start upgrading their technology because they had to do it because of all the virtual classrooms and everything else that was going on. And then here we are a couple of years later, and that well has started to dry up. And now budgets are really starting to get pinched. They're starting to get stretched. And keeping an eye on those costs is something that is paramount. I mean, are you seeing that within the platform?
Absolutely. And it's probably the number one thing when I'm talking to technology leaders that they're actually interested in. If you think about technology, it's probably the third largest expense that an organization has behind its people, human resources, and maybe real estate. But technology impacts everything. And what I hear consistently is the days of the 3-year life cycle for a PC or the 4-year life cycle for a desktop are gone. And as money continues to dry up or as budgets continue to become constrained, how do I know which devices I can get more useful life out of? How do I know which devices I can actually transition to new users who maybe need something new, but not brand new? And how do I extend that life cycle by a couple of years so that I can use that money for other investments that I need to make around the organization, around the tech stack?
And you bring up a really interesting point because that is something that a lot of people don't necessarily realize. So I'll talk about this sort of in the marketing sense. When my team gets a new PC, especially somebody who does like a lot of digital graphics, you've got to have the absolute best graphics card. You've got to have the audio card. You've got to have all the bells and whistles. After a couple of years, something newer, better, brighter, shinier comes out and will help my team do its job a little more efficiently. But the PC that my team member has been using is probably far and away better than something somebody else has been using. So that can basically be, I don't like to say recycled. I almost like to say upcycled because it goes from somebody who, again, it's not necessarily going to be the best for them to use, but somebody else is going to increase their performance tremendously. And that's the type of information that you get from WXP?
Absolutely. It's actually, we built in a model based off of what we do internally at HP. And, good, bad, or indifferent, I had the luxury of starting at HP in January of 2020. And, around March of 2020, 9 weeks later, we had a worldwide party where everybody suddenly became remote workers. And the ability to identify the threats to productivity for people who were all now distributed workforces became tantamount. But at the same time, the pandemic led to some supply chain shortages that, even working with DALY, you guys were looking to us on how we can get more PCs into your hands to solve and satisfy the demand of your clients. But we had supply chain shortages, so we actually had to prioritize customers and partners over internally. And the question I usually think of is, everybody wants a new PC, but who needs a new PC? And what WXP does is we monitor and we track things like CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk utilization, overall health related to OS crashes and items, and almost creating what you might call a Carfax for the PC, so that you can understand how it's been used, who's been using it, what its life cycle is, and how well it's been maintained. And it allowed us to start making decisions around the devices that needed to be replaced because of those utilization issues that could not be cured by a memory upgrade, or which ones could just simply take a memory upgrade from 16 to 32 and then be performing fine, which meant we were able to reduce our own internal costs, our own internal refresh cycle by the upper 20%. And as an organization that's working in a budget constrained environment, if you have the ability to reduce that PC investment because of a refresh cycle that allows you to say, Rick needs a new PC because he has to be able to edit and move things forward, but the PC he has would be perfect for Ryan, who needs a newer PC in order to maintain productivity. But what we're moving away from Rick is going to be perfect for his use case. It ties into our sustainability goals. It improves power consumption by eliminating older models, and it reduces the overhead or the cost structure of maintaining that fleet and managing an upcycle across the organization.
And I really do love the fact that, again, it goes towards sustainability, because that is a huge practice at DALY. I know that's a huge practice with HP. We work very closely with HP. We're a sustainability partner. And sustainability, it's really about trying to keep as much out of landfills as we possibly can, particularly when it comes to electronics. But I really love how you said sometimes you don't need a new PC. There's always a want versus a need. And yes, I mean, I've been in those shoes as well. All of a sudden something is running slowly and it's not quite working very well for me. And so immediately we start to think, because we're in that mindset, right? Of, oh, I need a new computer. No, you need an upgrade. And that is not something that the user is going to know. And that is typically not something that an IT person who's not plugged into that device is going to understand, because IT leaders wearing many different hats have how many hundreds, thousands of different internal customers all the time. But to be able to see, oh, wait a minute, don't need a new one, can simply upgrade the memory on this one. I mean, something like that is just revolutionary to me.
Well, and if you even roll it back to the employee engagement or the employee experience, we'll use the phrase end user. I think most organizations have a dynamic that is similar to what I have in my own home, right? I want the latest and greatest of everything that comes out, right? Just like you, Rick. We like the new toys. We love being able to play with that. My wife can squeeze 10 to 15 years out of a PC because to her, it is much worse to go through the change, to copy files over, to have a new way of working, a new OS. She will put that off as long as she possibly can. And when we look at our workforce, you probably have about a third of your workforce that want that latest and greatest, right? The new toys out. Let's play with it. You probably have a third of your workforce that is like, I don't ever want to change. unless I absolutely have to change. And then in the middle, you have the rest of that third of the workforce who just wants to be productive. And sometimes that means something new, and sometimes it means staying where they're at. And when you work through that dynamic, the ability to understand how a device is working for the person who never wants to replace it or wants to keep it as long as they can, and be able to leverage information to understand how you can keep that secure and performing for a longer period of time. And then how you take the Larrys and the Ricks and get them the latest and greatest so that they stay working with everything they can. And then take those devices that are probably only a year or two old and then redeploy them internally to the folks in the middle. Budgets are finite. Money is finite. And what we're really aiming to try and do is look at how do we make sure that the tools that are needed to do the job are there in the hands of the people based on what they actually do.
And that is an incredible way of looking at things. And again, like you said, this started internally at HP. And there are not a lot of companies that will take that mindset. Let's see what we're doing and let's see how we can deploy it everywhere else. Because, I mean, one of the bad raps that's happened for technology these days, for better or for worse, is that nothing is ever made to last, because if it was made to last, you wouldn't buy a new one. And it's all about driving that top line growth. But HP, being the forward-thinking company that it is, it's not about, oh, let's sell everybody the latest and greatest. It's let's sell them the latest and greatest where it's needed. Let's redeploy other things. Let's make sure that we're keeping stuff up and running as it needs to be up and running. And again, it's reducing the waste. It's reducing the cost. I mean, to me, that is just something that I think really will resonate with state and local government, education, both K-12 and higher ed, where, like you said, budgets are finite, and you have to do more with less. And the sad thing is, you can't really do more with less long term. You can only do less with less long term. But it's really helping to have those organizations do more with less.
And understanding what those end users are actually trying to achieve and making sure that they have that right tool set, because it extends beyond just the PC, right, Rick? I mean, it includes audio calls. It includes video calls. It includes the ability in the education space for students to be able to log in remotely and do homework assignments and do stuff. But it also means that I might be able to do some classes at the higher ed level that might be online. And how do we make sure that the video endpoints, the audio endpoints, the microphones, the AI, the PCs are actually optimized for how they're being used versus the generic, oh, they need a new PC?
Again, this is not something that typically would be information that an IT leader would have, because they're not sitting behind someone's shoulder seeing how are you using the PC? What are you accessing? What programs are you using? But WXP seems to gather all of that information for them. So it really does it takes a lot of guesswork out.
It does, because we tend to deploy technology based on what we might call personas. And this role gets this device, gets this set of technology. They get these programs. And Rick, you mentioned like yourself in the marketing team, right? So somebody in your team could be classified as marketing. And so all marketing people get this, but all marketing people don't do the same thing. And the place where it gets really interesting is when we start looking at how we can use AI to start to build, I'm going to call it profiles, user profiles that says, yes, Rick is in marketing, but here's the software Rick uses. Here's the browsers that he uses. Here's how many tabs he's got open. And, Rick always has 100 tabs open in Edge and another 50 in Chrome. And he's using these software programs, and he's connected to Zoom meetings and Teams. And maybe you're using Power BI for how you want to leverage some of that data. But understanding that maybe Rick's not editing video and editing audio programs, but someone on his team is. So maybe Rick needs a different PC based on the things that he does. And I kind of like to think of what we do with WXP is you build up that profile, you build up that persona, and you tell us somebody is in marketing. And then we say, okay, well, in marketing, you're going to give them this display, you're going to give them this video endpoint, you're going to give them this set of software, et cetera. But then much like Netflix, when you create an account on Netflix and you start to put in that I live in this area and I'm in this age group and here's 3 movies I like and 2 TV shows I like, and then Netflix tells you, here's things that you might like based on others like you. And then you start watching stuff. And Netflix then starts saying, hey, we're going to change our algorithm and we're going to start pushing in content that is more closely aligned with what you've been actually watching versus what your demographic age range is, male versus female, and TV shows you've told us I like. And we can do that same thing with telemetry here. We can now turn around and say, yes, let's give this PC to the person in marketing or in finance or here. But then over the course of the next year, let's watch what they actually do, the programs they actually use. Let's reclaim software that's being unused that we thought they needed because they're in marketing. And let's push out software that they need based on the jobs that they are doing. It's an opportunity to really rethink how you manage the technology investment that you're making. And this is where DALY and WXP can really come in and help school systems, state and local governments better understand how the investment that they're making in technology is being used and the opportunities to streamline and optimize that investment in order to improve not only the lifespan, but the productivity of the end user.
And it really does align with our methodology, which is we want to offer solutions. It's not just about selling products. We want to make sure that we're offering solutions. And so again, this is one of those situations where it's a solution that is just, it's beneficial for the end user. It's beneficial for the IT leader. It's beneficial for procurement. It's beneficial for leadership. I mean, we've got multiple use cases here where this type of data, this type of information that WXP is able to collect and disseminate and then help people to understand can really make a difference within an organization. So let me ask this. How does an organization start to utilize WXP? What is it that they need to do? Because you talked before about fearing the new when it comes to, fearing the new PC. And trust me, we've seen that even internally at DALY when people get new PCs, all of a sudden something doesn't work right for the next couple of weeks until they get everything figured out. But, we have this fear of change only because that's the point where something breaks. It's why people still have in the top of their Chrome window update available when you're on Teams, and they're not putting in that update because that means Chrome's going to stop working or something's going to break, and they tend to fear that. So how is it that an organization would bring WXP into their ecosystem?
It starts with the decision that you want to better manage the outcomes for your end users and more structure around making sure that they have the tools that they need to be productive. Number one. Number two, it's the acknowledgement that only about half of the people who are having problems with their technology ever call into IT and report the issue. And you actually want to find out just how widespread it really is. Maybe you had 10 support tickets about an OS crash related to a specific driver last night. And maybe you just want to type in, list all of the devices that had an OS crash related to this device in the last 12 hours and see, is it really 10 or is it 30? More likely it's 30. We all know that. And then last, you're going to deploy the agent. There's an agent that runs native on the machines. It's in the background. It gathers all of the telemetry, the performance metrics. And it also serves as the ability to survey those end users and ask them their satisfaction with the technology that they're using and pull that data in. It's really easy to get it deployed. What we're noticing more so is the understanding of the behavior of wanting to know more about what's impacting people and take action before it turns into support tickets. And then last, I'm from HP. So the next question might be, that's great, but not everybody has an all HP fleet. And we know that. And our software is built with a Windows agent, a Mac OS agent. We have an API connection to the Google Admin Console for Chromebooks. We even have an Android agent for some Android devices. And we look at that as the ability to understand you've made an investment in technology, and we want to help you get the most out of that investment. And sometimes that means you might have invested in a competitor's hardware. We want to help you run it better. And then when it's time to replace it, we want to help you avoid making the same mistake and buying an inferior product, and instead focus on the right HP device to help your team be more successful.
And that's a huge point to make about the fact that you can monitor multiple types of devices, because you're absolutely right. I have worked in so many organizations, particularly in the public sector, where nobody has the same make and model computer. Nobody has the same size hard drive. Nobody has the same speed. It's basically whatever was on sale that week. And sadly, might have even been whatever Amazon had on a lightning deal. And we look at that as a great short-term option. And usually it's, yep, we'll get this and this will get us through now, but later on we're going to have to do something. But being able to say, okay, so no matter what you're running, no matter if you're running Mac, no matter if you're running Chromebook, no matter if you're running a competitor's PC, we can still take a look at everything and we can still find out what's going on, how it's going on, and help you to manage things better. I have to think that IT leaders are just going to start salivating over that.
We've certainly seen great interest. And what I will say is we actually kind of try to look at how do we take it the next step. So one of the features, Rick, you and I have talked about there in Maryland was what we call Smart Refresh. And we've designed this in a manner that IT leaders can create investment strategies. How much money do they have budgeted for a PC refresh? Which quarter do they want these to fall in? Which groups do they want to target for how they want to do this? And then we'll actually do all of the hard work at looking at the performance data and providing the recommendations of these are the devices to replace and these are the devices that should be redeployed. Our goal there is to make it really easy for that IT leader to look at not just the issues that are impacting, right? Anybody can say, hey, I want to see drivers out of date and I want to update them. And we certainly help you do that. But it's more important, we think, for someone to be able to come in and say, here's my strategy for how we want to drive technology refreshes, and have the system then work against that strategy and provide recommendations on next steps to take. Or have the ability to come in and say, define cost optimization strategies for my fleet, and then let the system tell you where you have underutilized PCs that maybe need to be redeployed to people who have overutilized PCs, and where you can identify the opportunity to drive savings. We're certainly a company that's looking to sell PCs. We want to sell printers. We want to sell software, but we want to sell the right PCs. And we want to help all of our customers, and we want to help DALY help their customers be as wise as they can with the dollars that they're spending on the right things, so that everyone is productive, feel like they have the right tools. And then at the end of the day, our joint customers are going to be happier because we're not trying to get them to just spend money. We're trying to get them to spend the right money and understand where they can get more out of those investment dollars. And I think that's where the win is for organizations, in particular in the public sector.
I always use an analogy. You're never going to get a Cadillac when all you can afford is the monthly payment for a Kia. And again, both fine vehicles, not saying there's anything wrong with the Kia, not saying that, Cadillac is overpriced, just saying that when you think about a higher end vehicle, it's got a lot of bells and whistles. But if you're going 2 miles down the road each way twice a week, you don't need all of the bells and whistles. You don't need the self-driving. You don't need the lane control. You just need something that's going to get you from point A to point B. And quite frankly, again, it's refreshing to see an organization like HP taking the lead on this, where you're saying, look, as much as we would love to sell you the absolute best brand new, it's probably not something that you need. You need this. This is what's going to get you there. And we're able to give you that recommendation based on data, because data is absolutely paramount. Not a lot of organizations in the public sector are really able to tap into that data because they either don't know how to get to it, or they can't get to it unless there's a whole lot of hoops to jump through. So the fact that we're giving them this platform, I think, is amazing. It helps with the proactive nature. It really, like you said, helps them to make better and smarter decisions. We always like to say, spend smarter, and we're going to help you spend smarter. And this is one of the tools that we're going to have to do it. Now, I would be really remiss if I didn't mention that, there are a lot of people out there, particularly in the public sector, that say seeing is believing. You're telling me all this, and I love to hear it, but I really want to see how it works. And I know that one of the ways they could do that is to come to the Daily Technology Showcase, because you're going to be having a breakout session where we're going to be talking about WXP. And what are you going to show there?
We're preparing to show everybody exactly how they can leverage this platform to understand what's actually happening inside of their fleet. Even the emerging issues or the anomalies that have not led to an issue yet. We'll be doing a deep dive demo. Santiago Diaz, one of our senior product managers, is going to be there personally, walking in depth through how to use this program to look deeper into your fleet, but not just on PCs, what we can show on printers and virtual machines, and what we can show on video endpoints and IP telephones, and how to leverage that. But he's also going to be showing our Fleet Explorer. It's a natural language AI chatbot where you can literally just simply type in something like, what are cost optimization strategies for my fleet? What should I focus on today? And how the platform uses the data from the performance of your systems to help you focus your team on where they need to work. We're really looking forward to being there with you guys. I've had the pleasure of being at a number of daily events, both in Maryland and even at some of our events, and it's always a great time. But this will be the opportunity for your customers at Daily to talk directly to the people who are building this product and understand how Daily and HP are partnering together to use this information to help make those smarter decisions. I think of the IT investment, and I'm deliberately using that word because I think that far too often we do think of IT as that I need the latest and the greatest and I need this. But if memory serves, Warren Buffett's like the 5th or 6th richest person in the world, but he drives a 2014 Cadillac that he paid for with cash, and he bought it off of a used lot, and it had hail damage because he knew that the purpose of the car was to get him from home to work back to home, or any of those running places in between. And it was about making the smartest investment for the outcome he's trying to achieve. We believe that the combination of Daily and Daily's IT pros with WXP is the right combo of tools that will help your customers in the public sector leverage data, leverage information, and define outcomes that you're targeting, and then identify the right path to get there in an informed manner using WXP.
And then for those customers or prospects that are listening to this that aren't going to be able to come to the showcase and see this in person, how do we help educate them? I mean, I'm sure you've got some things in the works as far as where you're, again, not able to have them in the same room with you, but you're still able to demonstrate that type of power of data.
Absolutely, Rick. The first thing I would say is, if you're not able to attend the showcase, call your Daily rep and tell them, hey, help me get more information, because our team is working directly with the Daily team, and we can schedule a demo if that's what's necessary. The other thing I'll tell you is that you can simply go to www.hp.com/WXP. That will take you to the website, and the 4th tab at the top is resources. And underneath of resources, you can see demo videos. You can read our blogs and that show how it does it. You'll see case studies on what other customers and end users are doing. And that resource is there so that you could actually see on a video how the product does certain things and better understand why DALY and HP are partnering to help you use this kind of a technology in order to improve performance of the entire stack of IT.
Larry, this is absolutely fascinating and exciting stuff. I mean, it really is a great time. Everybody is kind of on the fence when it comes to utilizing AI, right? Because there are some people that think it's going to take jobs away, and in some instances it will help, but there's always going to need to be that human factor. So it's not like the machines are going to rise up and we're all just going to become batteries like in the Matrix. But this is, again, something where you're taking data, you're taking AI, and you're utilizing it, again, to make things better, to make better decisions, smarter decisions, and just really work toward the betterment of these organizations. And again, hats off to you and the HP folks. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I talked about us, you and I, being those lovers of new technology, right? I'm talking to you today through my EliteBook AI PC. It's a great PC. It helps me maintain my calendar. I use it for a lot of workflow processes at the back end. But the biggest thing I would say is I've yet to meet an IT leader who's told me that they have unlimited funding for next year. Every time I talk to them, I hear, we're trying to navigate some budget constraints. We're trying to navigate some improvements. We're trying to navigate working across departments. And the biggest thing I would say for all of our audience of IT pros and leaders out there is, for far too long, IT has been looked at as a cost center in doing business across organizations, when in reality, IT is probably the single biggest partner to HR, to finance, to marketing, et cetera, because IT is the group that can help identify, do our employees have the tools they need that they feel they need in order to be successful? Do they have the tools they need based on what they actually do? And use data to help departments make wiser spending decisions on the technology investment that they make across the board. I think that that's going to continue to grow. And we believe that with DALY and WXP, your public sector clients are going to have far more information at their fingertips to make informed decisions and become the partner that is needed across all of the departments inside of that public sector organization.
Larry, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Cannot wait to see you at the showcase. It's going to be fantastic. Definitely want to implore everybody that can get registered for the showcase. It's daly.com/DTS 2025. Get yourself registered and get yourself there. And make sure you're contacting your DALY representative to find out more about WXP, because there is a lot to learn and a lot of benefits to be had. Larry, thanks for being on the Technology Pulse, and I look forward to having you back.
That wraps up another insightful episode of the Daily Technology Pulse podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Before we go, we want to take a moment to remind you of some important legal considerations. The views and opinions of guests on the Technology Pulse podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of DALY Computers or its partners. The content provided in this podcast are for informational and entertainment uses only and should not be considered as professional advice. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of DALY Computers, Inc. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at www.daly.com. The Daily Technology Pulse podcast will be back with more exciting discussions on the latest in technology. Until next time, stay curious and stay connected.